And you might say, well, pleasure, it's like, yeah, that's not going to be forthcoming that much when you're in pain. And then pleasure per se has its own vices, let's say, that's for sure. How about meaning as the antidote to pain? How would that be? Then you might think, well, where do people find meaning? Well, they certainly find it in aesthetic pursuits and artistic pursuits, in the domains of literature and art, beauty, all of that. But people also find meaning in responsibility. And that's something we've forgotten to a degree that's almost incomprehensible. You know, if you're ever really ill, which you will be, if you're ever really in pain, which you certainly will be, if you're ever faced with hellish circumstances, which you certainly will be, you might ask yourself, well, what do you have under those circumstances? And maybe if you're fortunate, you have someone to play with. And maybe if you're fortunate, you have the meaning of your responsibilities. You know, and even if you're the sinner who's produced the hell that's around you, and you can say to yourself, yeah, but you know, I've been a good servant to my wife, and I've been a good father to my children, and my family's been a credit to the community, and I've taken on some community responsibilities to try to set the broader world around me right, and I've shouldered my civic duties, and as far as I've been able to, I've been a good person. Then maybe while you're suffering, you don't have to scourge yourself with all your sins at the same time. And that's something, man. And maybe in that situation, that's all you're going to have. And that might be the difference, not only between life and death, but between hell and life. Because there are worse things than death, that's for sure. And so, then imagine if it was the case that you could have what you needed and wanted, and you could say, well, play is the antidote to tyranny. That'd be lovely. And meaning is the antidote to pain and cynicism and bitterness and social discontent and discord. And so then your life could be meaningful play. Maybe you can come up with a better optimistic proposition than that. And if you can, good for you, really. But that's not a bad vision, you know. And you can test it out. One of the things I used to do with my clients, this is real useful too, and it's sort of done in the spirit of necessary humility. So imagine your life isn't everything it could be. That's generally not that hard to imagine. But then also imagine that there's some variation, you know, week to week, is that maybe you're pretty damn miserable, but sometimes you're unbelievably miserable, and sometimes you're just sort of miserable. And that's not great, but at least there's some variability. One of the things you might do as a clinician, or as a friend, or as a partner, is say, well, exactly what are you doing when you're less miserable? And what are you doing when you're more miserable? Don't think about it. Watch, like you're watching someone you don't know. This often happens with depressed people. So one of the problems with depression is it's a positive feedback loop, Because you get depressed, and then you stop seeing your friends. And even if you're introverted, there's friends you want to see, at least one-on-one, at least now and then. So now you start to isolate yourself, and then you get more depressed. And then you isolate yourself more. And then you get more depressed. It's downhill spiral, you know. It's